Hello. This is about a new feature, which is a new system to coordinate this revolution. And these are the 9 roads, which were already mentioned. It's telling the truth to other people, how the system works, how economics work, how democracy can work, how the system itself, what I'm doing now, is on this road. Here you buy fair trade. There you organize democratic companies, buy democratic investment funds. Here you organize political parties with strong internal democracy. You take over the national government. Then you can legislate these things in the nation. Here is the revolution, where you combine in the street with groups of 50 persons to elect a delegate, and the delegates form councils, and this becomes a second government, which is not located in the place of the old government, but it's a government next to the old the pre-existing government. You can do these things like organizing political parties and investment funds and talk about it when there are political rights in that nation. So if there is freedom in a nation, you can start from this side. If there is no freedom in the nation, then and you would talk about something like this system, and then you would be imprisoned or killed, then you can better start from this direction. Here you are an individual who protects these ideas and wait for a moment where they can be put to wider use in the nation. Protecting the here you have protecting the truth, and here you have talking to other people about it. So these two loop around to each other. Here you organize cells with around 5 between 2 or 10 persons, and they do not allow anyone else in until they all agree, and they keep it small. And it's undefined what they do, because there is a hard tyranny going on, and if you say you're going to this or that, then the enemy knows, and they can roll you back. Or if they say it will be a big organized network, then they will infiltrate the network and they roll everyone back. So it's disorganized and undefined. Here you have the conquest of land, which is, for example, what happens if a civil war becomes a territorial conflict in a nation, where some areas are liberated or under the control of one camp and the others under the control of another camp. Then you can get a territorial war, but you may also be a nation thrown out or somewhere, or a group, and you need to live somewhere, so you may need to conquest land. But in this system, you do this while respecting the existing people who live there, and they get absorbed into the new nation and ask where they want to take the whole group. So it's not about the oppression, of the people who are in the conquested land, but about even about helping them to. But you have to leave somewhere sometimes. You cannot dive in the ocean and die. So, and here you have a people's armies who fight for the right to speak and the right to assemble for everyone. So it's not a self-defense of a certain political group or everyone who agrees with this, but there may be other groups who disagree with this. There may be capitalists who want everything traded. There may be communists who want nothing traded. There may be monarchists for this or that king, and they all have the right to say what they want, and they all have the right to assemble their own organizations without a tyrannical government destroying them. This is also worked out in a ranking system, and the armies themselves have internal democracy to prevent them from becoming corrupt. And then, if you have such armies, they may also win a fight against a tyranny. Therefore, they can become a sovereign government or a sovereignty in the area under the generals or the internal army councils. But they are then to organize a civil democracy according to what the people want, and there is a special brigade in this system called a Purple Brigade, which is trained and prepared to organize various civil democratic systems, one of which is this system, but there may be other systems that the people want to do. As soon as they can, they move it, or really within 3 months they must have the job ready to get a nation under a civil government, and they step out of the sovereignty. So we also end here in the revolution, and in this system that is the council of 50 persons, and they then, in this system, you only have a government, you only have voter groups of 50 persons, you have councils of delegates of 50 persons, you have higher level councils of any number of delegates who contract also in councils with 50 twice elected delegates. So you have a system with people who are the government effectively, or a system that could be the government once it is gaining the sovereignty through the trust of the people, that we have more people in this system than they have in the other systems. Then you become sovereign, practically and morally. The first thing they can then do is ratify a 3-law constitution, which establishes them on the basis of a law which describes the formation of these voter groups and councils. And added into that is a referendum law. So the people become the power over these delegates. So the first thing this new government does in this system, they don't have to follow these. Oh, this is the symbol of the National Council. And is to give the power back to the people through the referendum. They already have the voter group delegates power, but then by enacting these 3 laws, they give the power of referendum to the people. So the first thing they do in the system is give the power back to the people. And also in the 3 laws is that the delegates can be removed from power any moment, so they give up the fixation, perhaps the natural fixation of where they are at, and it also goes back to the people. Here are these 3 laws. This is our way. Our councils are formed by delegates chosen by 50 persons or more. The delegates form councils and may group again, selecting representation. Our people make decisions together by 1 person, 1 vote. The non-votes can be added by the delegates. I see the immediate representation is not part of the law. Sorry. Would be the idea though. Then they move. Then you have 3 laws, and this is called a constitutional assembly. So what they have done is organize themselves for the purpose of organizing the nation, making a constitution. So that's the first task they get into, is what kind of system does the nation want or need. And then the first thing in this system they could do, although they could also go other directions, is to look at this system. They go to the 7-law constitution, which adds 4 laws to the existing 3. And this is the essence of a so-called David system. When a company loses its founder and is of substantial size, they become ruled by those working in it. It's democratic companies. The second is we will allow none to become too rich, which is a convenient way to prevent a ruling class of money, lending, banking, and also crimes to come about. It's easier then to prevent rent seeking. This is more effective at stopping that. Then you get everyone will have an equal share of the natural resources in our nation, which is the land distribution. Everyone has an economic platform to work from, to live from, to have work. Every human being is respected and a goal in itself, which is a convenient way to make the principle of human rights, human dignity, prevent slavery, all kinds of worse things that may happen if you have a revolution, where a new government may feel they have the power to organize work brigades and it doesn't work, so they have to work no harder and it's for the nation and they have to work themselves to death and a great wonderful sacrifice they have made, they put the children to work, all kinds of abuses may follow a revolution. So this should prevent, or even at least in a principled way, and say to the people, you have rights. You should not let yourself be abused. And you can point to that law, say, we have this law which prevents such policies. From there, you have a David system in principle. Now it gets more detailed in a 50-law constitution, which is still very short, can be read by everyone. And this has the principles of the longer version, and it reads like this. The preamble, the motto: always seek peace with our brothers and sisters of other nations. We want to be there to support them if they need us. We ask no more than to be at peace with you. This is the way we have chosen for ourselves. And the first law: these are our laws. We have instituted them together, only we can change them together. Second law: all on our territory are bound by these laws by our force, and these laws must respect all that are on our territory. This is supremacy of the law, and this is that the Constitution is in the hands of the people together, and not by any small group who can fiddle with it. Our flag indicates when we are in peace. It indicates if we are at war for all to see. This is the flag protocol about war. We do not want an empire or to be too great. Serious groups in our nation may start their own nation to be self-sufficient and independent. This is the principle of not being an empire, which can never be managed, can never be have justice inside. And it is the principle that minorities can start their own nation, so they can be protected by violence of the majority, or just things they don't want. We will accept law 5. We will not accept domination over ourselves from another nation. So this means that we also pull out of any imperial games or empire through subjugation, which I was trying to organize. 6. Every human being is worthy of justice and freedom to be equal in these with respect to other people. Law 7. When our councils sink in chaos, our king or queen will rule them. It's a safety precaution. Punishment does, for the sake of the innocent, not include wounding, torture or death. Animals are not to be abused. Everyone has the right to speak and listen. Everyone has the right to organize. You own what you rightfully acquired. The privacy of your home may not be violated unless for the gravest concerns in the pursuit of justice. We will try our best not to convict innocent people of crimes. Someone convicted of imprisonment will be kept separate from other such imprisoned people if he/she so wants it. Children should be cared for, which is by the parents, ideally. 15. Our representatives behave true to the word. They are servants to the will of the people. 16. We can force our way onto the delegates using a direct vote on an issue. The abstentions are represented by the delegates. It's a referendum system. So if people do not vote, maybe 90% does not vote, then 90%, those votes go to the delegates, they fill them in, and the combined result is the result of the referendum. Our general election dates are determined by an independent body who are elected by the people. Our king or queen will inspect our government. We will inspect our king or queen. And we is the people. 19. Our government has no secrets. Delegates decide by their own majority. 20. We elect and replace at our whim our delegates that represent us. By the people, elected delegates may group together to elect and replace at their whim someone to represent them. But those so selected may not do the same. That means there are only two levels. There's the delegate who is elected by a voter group, and those delegates may combine to elect someone from between them to represent them in a larger council, but there it stops, so there's only two types of delegates, two types of councils, and not another level above this. It also means that the National Council is elected on this system. Our delegates are rewarded in modest compensation for their work. We elect our delegates by freely assembled groups of 50 or more. Our delegates form councils together by 50 delegates or more. And the or more is envisioned to only be a few people. Not that it is suddenly 50,000, but maybe 60, 51, or 50. Our delegates will let everyone know well in advance what they are going to be discussing. If our delegates form large councils, they can divide themselves into 50 groups or more that each choose one of their own to represent them. Our nation has a national council, one delegate from each area. Our government councils can appoint ministerial councils who handle a special task for the government council. 27. There are no delegates that are not supported by those they represent. Our delegates do not serve another master in secret. Our government will receive our word and let the people know what they have received. This means if you have an opinion about the government and you send them a letter, then they will republish that letter to the people. The people know what the government is getting from the people. In this way the people can communicate with each other through the government. An independent and trustworthy group of people will be put to the task of judging who broke our laws. That is the judicial system. An independent and trustworthy group of people will be put to the task of finding who seem to have broken our laws. When a home must be searched in the pursuit of justice, the resident is compensated if innocent. The law strives to establish equality of power. Local councils of delegates have government power in the area. Larger area councils rule issues if the local councils cannot agree to do things differently or the same, or want them to rule something. So that means the local councils have power over their own affairs, and not the larger council is the absolute dictator down to the last centimeter. Besides police and king and those responsible in the government, a third group keeps an eye on the integrity of our money system. The police and king being the first two groups, they are the ones who are doing it, and they are the third group to watch it. The disaster relief organization trains for disasters. War is only one type of disaster it trains for. It gets the army away from focusing on war over time, especially if the chance is reduced by other nations perhaps waging less war. Our army only fights tyranny within our own borders, so it's not an imperial army. Our armies aren't fighters daring decide for themselves if they will fight if the people ask them to fight, so the army can refuse to fight. We will not allow someone to profit unfairly from a power position. If needed, we will organize a specific service by general negotiation. For example, the road system, if you have or a bridge, if you have this under a power of a single company, they will abuse that power. everyone in the nation is free to negotiate exchanges of what they own. It's a free market system. Groups who create something together and are not yet ruled by their group majority become ruled by the group majority once they lose the original starter and are larger than 10 people. This is again the democratization of the companies. So you do not have a dictatorial economy, but you can have a dictator at the head of a company if that dictator is also the founder of the company. We do not accept that people have masters outside of a nation for whom they work for their livelihood. So this is a economic imperialism where some nation gets into another nation or our nation, organizes people, and then sucks out the profit to their own nation. That's not allowed. Groups who work together are not to abuse themselves or each other. So working conditions. There cannot be too much concentration of power in the business compared to other businesses. So this against monopoly type situations. Groups who offer products in the markets do not keep the working conditions in their establishments a secret. (45) We may in selected cases create a special system to handle a certain work that requires a special solution beyond a free market or nationally negotiated production. But you never know if there's somewhere an exception that needs to be dealt with outside the free market and outside what the national government or the local, the council government wants to manage more or less directly. So this allows it. 46. When our economy and the Wealth become too lopsided, the government may step in with mass approval and do what is necessary to redress the balance of power. So in an economy the rich have power and they usually want to become rich, or they wouldn't even have become rich. Then they are richer, more powerful, they use that to become even more rich. Then they are even more rich, become even more rich. And the poor, they pay for it, so they have to become poorer and poorer. And that is a way in which an economy spirals into tyranny, which happens often. And here the government has the power to stop it and to do whatever is needed to get the economy back to some sort of a balance of power, so the trade economy is not ruled by power differences but more by quality and choice. Quality of work, which can be any quality, such as not polluting the lands, does not have to be cheap. (47) Our councils set themselves with restraint to the and transparency to the task of business finance. So this pushes out the professional bankers and investors who play the money games to get rich without working, funding abusive companies where the labor costs are low, which turns the nation into a hell. But here the government does it itself, but it's said with transparency, but also with restraint, because the markets should operate on their own work and choices and not be completely dominated by the finance sector. There's no need for that. Individuals may lend to other small sums for interest, but not large sums. The interest received from loans must not be enough to make a living. But this is a fairly soft law against people lending money to someone else, which is also meant to stabilize the whole system, because if it is restrictive on ordinary persons that they cannot lend to someone a little bit of money, which may be and then they could not ask a little bit of money on top of that back, which normally the people even wouldn't do. But if it is very restrictive, a law on ordinary people, there is a chance that they start breaking it, that they start breaking the law, and degrading the standing of the law. So here it is allowed that regular persons do things with their money, like asking a little bit of rent on a small loan, without getting into trouble. Then they won't degrade the system. And if the people and they are not really a problem, because with small amounts of money you don't ruin a whole nation, you don't organize huge slave farms. But if the people who do lend a lot of money, they become a problem, and they then bump into this law. They are stopped, and then the people are happy, because these people could become their abusers. They sell them give them very low wages, and they play all kinds of tricks, and they are stopped by the law, and that also secures the law. 49. Loans or other such investments are cancelled after 7 years, except for the value of something that was offered in temporary ownership to the lending party as a condition of the loan. So here you have that the loans are always tied to a collateral, and it is recomputed towards that collateral every 7 years. And if the value of the collateral is destroyed, or then the loan is also destroyed. So a person can always get out from all its debts after 7 years. Maybe they have nothing after 7 years, but at least they are free. And then you can say, oh, that is not fair on the loan giver, but the loan giver does not have to give a loan. If they don't want to give a loan because they're afraid they want to be paid back in time or whatever, then they don't give a loan. So they know this is the condition for loans in a nation. You cannot enslave people using loans. If you want to enslave people using loans, you must go to another nation. Well, you don't live by making loans, but by work. And who takes care of the necessary investment? That's what the councils do in the other law. Every person has the natural and practical right to use its equal share of the available natural resources. That's where you all get a share of the farmland or a place to have business, and the land is free. The building maybe is not free. The seeds on the land is not free, but you have at least the land. So you have opportunity. And it also solves the problem of unemployment. If you have land, you can work, and maybe you fail, but you can still try. So you can always work. And that's the 50 from the 7 laws, which have the essence of the David system, democratic companies, investments and land and democratic government. You have it more worked out here, but it's not very worked out yet, because what is the judicial system? It was only that there was a judicial system. There was nothing about how the judges are appointed, and there was nothing about how the land is distributed. There was nothing about how a king could be elected or appointed or whatever, or how you want to do it. So from this point you have all kinds of principles which you can still work out differently. You can So once you are here, you can then look for, okay, how do we do this? How do we want to do it? And how do we need to do it? So you can then go to the larger constitution, which is so large I cannot read it here. And you can then you have ratified it until here. Okay, so now the nation is looking at fairly detailed issues. How do you install a judge? How do you distribute land? All kinds of things. And you can then say, well, we don't want to do it as it is proposed in this larger law, which is this law. Want maybe to do it a little bit different or very different. Maybe you want jury trials, some nations jury trials, some nations not jury trials. Well, actually that is something you can still do differently in this system too, I think. But well, if you follow this model, you go into these laws. There's, for instance, where the nationally negotiated economic sector is legislated in the constitution, and this is a free market system. So, for example, in the other 50 laws, it said only that after the starter leaves and the company is 10 persons big, you have to become a democracy. And here in this law system, it has these laws until here. It's all about the same thing. And here they can, in the constitution, stands what kind of business they then want to get into. They can choose between a variety of categories. For example, they elect a boss, which is all powerful, or they choose a management with which they cooperate and have a dialogue with the management, or another. So it is much more detailed. So that's it. And you have land distribution. So in the other law you have only one line, and here you have here until here about it. And then from once you have this, you can work it out in more detail still, because what's the taxation system? How do we print the currency? Where are our embassies located? Many things are still to be decided, although they're also often part of the ideas on the website. And I wanted to show this just very simple program. So this is just a computer drawing program. So that's it. Hope you like it. And if you don't like it, don't do it. Okay, I thought to change some things a little bit. This is the 3 laws for the Constitutional Assembly, and reads now: our councils are formed by delegates, each supported by 50 persons or more, so everyone constantly has to have the approval of the ones that elected them. So it's not chosen but supported. And this is also better, I hope, The delegates may group again, selecting a representative in a larger council. So if you have 10,000 delegates, you can of course not debate. They can divide into 50 groups, each choose from themselves one delegate in a wider council. Because this is very short, it doesn't have a lot of detail, which makes it easier to ratify. Thank you for your interest. And here is now selecting, but that should of course also be supporting. Because delegates must always be behind or represent them. And so this is how I make it.